in a Paulec now, and Professor Allman didn't introduce me, but he is my best friend, so I thank you for not introducing me. He's so great. He's so great. Thank you for inviting me.
Something like that
He
now.
went to my wedding, so that was super nice of him. He also gave me like an award or something when I graduated. So, but we all know I can't compete with Tesla.
Why I'm not there?
So what?
Why I'm not there?
You're not there? Oh, I'm sorry. You're here, I think, somewhere. Anyway.
By the way, that award I gave you, they really didn't listen to me on that one. I was totally against it. I was. And
Well, he was there.
they were insistent.
Anyway, we all know I'm lying about him being my best friend, who's Tester. Tester really is, unfortunately, so there's no competing there. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit. I'm like a mathematician by training. I'm getting my master's at Wake Forest University in math, and then I graduated from here with my undergrad in math. And I really like math. I think it's super fun. I like the pure side of this, the more abstract thought. And yeah, but what I wanted to do, since I know most people coming here are not mathematicians, I wanted to do a little bit more on like the applications of the research that I do, because I didn't want you guys to be bored. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do, how it works, and then how it applies to chemistry, biology, and physics. I am not any of those things. I'm a mathematician. So like, you pre-med majors, like, feel free to say something, add something if you're like, oh, that's like not how you say DNA or something. Like, feel free to hop in. I also wanted to say, presentations are extremely boring if you don't understand what's going on. So ask me questions. If you're like, wait, that made no sense, like, stop me, raise your hand. I'd love to explain it, because I don't want you sitting here for 40 minutes if you have no idea what's going on, because that's boring. Okay, cool. So you like math, that's true. I started out as a pre-med student at SU. I was a missionary kid, and I spent most of my time in Haiti volunteering at a clinic, and I loved it. And so I came here like, I am going to be a pediatric surgeon. And then I took calculus, and I was like, I really like that. So I kept like going on in math, and by my sophomore year, I was a math major. Here's some really embarrassing pictures of me in my pre-med days. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about why I like math, because it's a lot more than just like sitting and like calculating numbers all day. I actually don't use my calculator ever. I am a calculator. Math, higher math is a lot more like philosophy, so we use logic. Your first like pure math class is learning about logic, logical syllogisms, like how does that stuff work. And so I would say a lot more of what I'm doing in my day-to-day basis in my master's degree is a lot more akin to philosophy, because I'm like taking these ideas and I'm trying to apply them and use them to prove some sort of theorem. So I'm using logic a lot. One of my favorite questions ever that I was asked was if math was created or discovered. I think that's really a fascinating question. I kind of cheap out with my answer and I say it's a little bit of both. I feel like God created math. He already knows all the things that I'm learning, and I'm slowly discovering more about him as I like learn more about math and I discover more about what he's created. I feel like I am learning more about his character and who he is, but I think he already made it before I figured it out. But some people disagree with me. And then another really cool thing about math is it's all over nature. I think that like a lot of his creation just screams who he is, and there's a lot of math behind that. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is math research. When I was coming here, like in my undergrad, I didn't even know math research was a thing. I was like, it's all discovered. What do you mean? So given that that's what I do all the time, I thought maybe I should share it a little bit. I also threw in a little pet peeve in here because I hate when people say, what's the point of what you do? I don't know yet. Like, I'm just doing my research. I'm doing what I really enjoy. The government, for some reason, pays me to do it. I'm just like exploring different ideas. So the big idea is to ask some sort of question that maybe nobody has the answer to yet. for example, how many rectangles are in this grid. So like, this is a rectangle, this is a different rectangle, this is a rectangle, the whole thing's a rectangle. Does anybody have a guess on how many rectangles there are? Just throw one out.
100.
Okay, that's not bad. So my friend said 8, so don't feel embarrassed about how many there are. There's 60. And I don't want to go through it because it's a little bit like confusing on walking through it. But there's 60, and there's a lot of math going behind how to like quickly calculate that using formulas and just kind of like evaluating what's going on there. Okay, so topology is a field of mathematics where you study shapes and kind of try and create some sort of mathematical correlation to shapes. So the biggest thing is like telling two shapes apart. So when I look at the donut and the sphere, I'm like, okay, those are different shapes. Those aren't the same thing. But how do I mathematically tell them apart? Is there formulas? Is there some sort of proof about how they're two different things? And a big thing in topology is pretending everything is made out of like stretchy rubber. So the idea is I want to try and mathematically show that if I have a donut, I can't stretch it or squeeze it enough to force it to be the ball. And same thing with the sphere or the ball, there's no way I can stretch it or squeeze it enough to make it the donut. Okay, any questions on like what topology is? Yeah.
Well, quick question on the sphere thing. If you were to stretch it and then turn into the shape of a donut, it would still not be a donut?
That's gluing.
Okay.
So like, yes, it would be if you like stretched it and glued, but then you would be gluing and that changes the like integrity of the shape.
Right.
So you can't do any like cutting or poking holes or gluing at all when you're doing this. You need to like pretend like it is a piece of rubber. Like if you cut the rubber, that's no longer the same piece of rubber. Okay. It's kind of like a balloon. If you cut the balloon, it would no longer have the properties of being able to like blow it up like a balloon. Okay. So what is topology research? This is something I did with a group of undergrads last year. I was like, okay, some people know how to play chess. What if instead of just like on a square, we played it on a donut? It's called a torus in math. I don't know why we have fancy names for things. But what if I played chess on a torus instead? So there's tons of questions, right? Like what does that change about like the plays that I can do? Is it possible to even win on a torus? Like all of these different questions. There's different games you can play with the chessboard too. So yeah, it opens up a lot of different questions. It's like, okay, you normally play chess on a square. How does it change? Because a donut you can wrap around. So like, if I had the king or something, I can like go around the whole thing, which on a normal chessboard is just square. Any questions? You also have something called the Mobius band. You can play chess on this. It's also super weird. I brought a few crafts. Because the Mobius band is a super weird thing that only has one side. And I gave you guys a few things to like play around with. So a Mobius band is if you take like a piece of paper and then you put like a single twist in it and glue it back up to itself. So here, like it has one pink side and one green side. And if I take it, twist it, and fold it, you can see the green is becoming the pink. And the pink is becoming the green. So all of a sudden, if you started to trace around it, it would only have one side. And you're looking at this like, that has two sides, but mathematically it has one side, so it's super funky, right? I feel like it's funky. Okay, there's a few that are like two-sided too, like circles and circles. Okay. So, another question we have is like, okay, if I look at these two shapes, how do I tell the difference between these two shapes? Does anybody see like an automatic difference between the two of them?
The circle?
The circle, yeah, there's a circle in that one. So that's different. We're gonna come back and talk about how mathematically you can tell that they're different. So, knot theory is the field of math that I do. It's a subfield of topology. So topology studies shapes, tries to create proofs about shapes. And then knot theory is specifically on knots, so like studying the shapes of knots. And the basic idea is you take some sort of cord or a shoelace and you tangle it up a ton, and then you connect up the ends of your shoelace or your cord. And the idea is if it's a knot if you can't like unknot it at all. Like your shoelace, when you tie it, you can end up unknotting it. But if you connected it up, there's no way to pull it apart and make it become an unknot. So this is the unknot because it has no crossings, it's like super simple. And then this is the simplest non-trivial knot called the trefoil. It's heretically the Trinity. And then, heresy. And then this is the figure 8 knot. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. All right, so what we do in knot theory is we try and kind of say something about a three-dimensional object by putting a flashlight on top of the three-dimensional object and studying the 2D. So here is the trefoil, our favorite thing from the last slide, my favorite thing. And if we're looking at this slide, it's taking like a flashlight and shining it on this wall. And the goal is to try and say something about the three-dimensional object based on what's on this wall. And the same thing, like if we're looking at this, we're going to take a flashlight from the top, flash it down, and you can see this sort of, it's called a projection of the knot. On the right is a little sneak peek of what's coming. It's folded protein and its projections. Okay, any questions on that part? Okay. All right. I'm going to kind of blaze through a little bit of math, but I promise it's useful and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but it's going to be like a few definitions, so please stop me again if you have any questions on them. Okay, the crossing number is the smallest number of crossings that you can possibly have over any knot. So this one is achieving crossing number because it has 3 crossings, and it's the trefoil, which has 3 crossings. So it has 1, 2, 3. And there's no way for me to like manipulate it to have 2 crossings. So its crossing number is 3. This is the exact same knot, it's the trefoil, but it has an additional crossing because I just kind of like twisted it over. And I know that it's not achieving crossing number because if I just took this and untwisted it, it would look exactly like that. Does everyone feel okay with the figure? Okay, yeah.
Wait, what was the term you used before crossing number? You said like cheat.
Achieving.
Oh,
Achieving crossing number, yeah. It's like, I did it, I've got my crossing number. Okay, cool. I work with crossing number a lot, so it's my friend. Okay, let's go back to our thing before. Let's assume that these 2 things are achieving crossing number. So they have the smallest number of crossings possible. Something I forgot to tell you is if you have 2 knots that have different crossing numbers, that means that they're not the same knot. They're totally different. Okay, how can we tell that these are 2 distinct knots? Yeah, they have different crossing numbers. Something I also want to note, this is my little, oh, fun. So this guy is a knot because it only has 1 component. So it's just like 1 cord that's been tangled together and glued. And then this one is called a link because it has 2 things. So you've got like the circle in there, and then you've got the trefoil. So there's 2 different components going on, and those are called links. Okay. If you're really weird, you can study torus knots. That's basically just like taking a torus, which is a donut, so the math hierarchy of making things sound fancier than they are. And you just take the donut and then you put like a knot on the outside of the torus. And the 5 is like how many times the knot is wrapping around this way, and then the 7 is how many times it's wrapping around this way with the donut. So I'll come up again later. Smoothing a crossing. This is when you take like a specific crossing in a knot and then you change it. So it's not going to be the exact same knot once you smooth the crossing. It changes the fundamental like properties of the knot. But let's say this is a part of some bigger knot. You zoom in like with a magnifying glass on a specific crossing and then you delete it. It's not there anymore. And then you connect up the components either this way, like smoothing like this, or smoothing like this. And it turns out it can change, based on how you smooth the crossing, it can change what happens to it. So if we take the trefoil, this is the first picture. We take the trefoil and I say, okay, I want to smooth this top crossing. I'm going to delete the crossing and then replace it with either this one or replace it with this one. And these are totally different shapes because this guy is a link. It's like 2 different circles collected together that can't be separated at all. And then this one, if I kind of like mess with it a little bit, it becomes the unknot, just a normal circle. So it turns out that if you smooth a crossing in a different way, it entirely changes what happens to your knot. Okay, this is a really heavy slide. I didn't want to go through the math of what goes on here because I kind of thought it would be a little bit too boring. But every single knot has something called a Jones polynomial. And a polynomial is just like if you have 4x squared plus 3x plus 4, when you have like those constants in front of like x squared and stuff. So every single knot can actually have a specific polynomial that represents what that knot is. And the way that you create and figure out that polynomial is by smoothing the crossings. So I wonder if I can zoom in. Oh, I can. Okay, so I took the trefoil and then I started to smooth it. So this is the first picture that we saw. And I smoothed it, and then I smoothed it the other way. And there's a corresponding like formula for how I smoothed it. I didn't want to go too much into it, but at the end you get this, and this is called the bracket polynomial. And then you take the bracket polynomial, you plug it into some random other formula, and you get the Jones polynomial. You can ask me more about this after, I just didn't want to go through the mechanics of it. But these are all of the different Jones polynomials. So we've got a polynomial for the hop flank, we've got a polynomial for the trefoil, like you see up here. So like the trefoil's hop flank, the trefoil's Jones polynomial is tau to the -1 plus tau to the -3 minus tau to the -4. And if you have two different polynomials for like two different knots, you know that they're not the same knot. So it's called an invariant when you have some sort of property that if they're different for two knots, you know that they're not the same. Okay.
So they're not knots.
Yeah, I was trying
Okay.
not to say that. Just trying. Any questions on the Jones polynomial? Okay, this one's super cool in physics. Okay, braids. This is kind of a subfield of knot theory. It's called braid theory. The basic idea is to take this kind of twist. So you've got these two strands, and then you just kind of twist them around each other, and then you connect up the ends with like themselves. So use my cursor. So you take this guy and connect it up, and then you take this one and connect it up. And it turns out that if you connect them up, it becomes the hop flank. And then if you take a different braid, like this guy, and you just add in a single twist, you get the trefoil, which is the first thing that we talked about. If you add in a strand, you get the figure 8 knot. Yeah?
Are there like naturally occurring like patterns like this?
DNA, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know anywhere else.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's any math people here, but if you take algebra, you can. Abstract algebra, not that algebra. Yeah. There's a whole field in math called algebra, and it's not your normal algebra. And there's a lot of applications here because you can create a group out of this different overstrands and understrands that are going in there. Okay, this is the last like speed run fact that I have to share. So remember, like it's called a link if you have more than one component. Here I have two components, and the linking number is how many times the components like wrap around each other. So this picture is counting the linking number, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it's like wrapping around a full time and then a second time. And that's called the linking number. Okay, any questions on general knot theory? Okay. Perfect. So it's pretty crazy because normally math doesn't have immediate applications. Knot theory is fairly new, and pretty recently it's starting to have immediate applications. It's very, very rare in math. It normally takes a very long time for what like a mathematician does to be applicable. So it's really exciting. That's something that I just happen to be interested in, is having all these applications. But like I said, I'm learning about these applications, and yeah, I just wanted to share it with you guys. I think it's pretty cool. So chemistry is what I'm first going to talk about. So the main goal with using knot theory in chemistry is to synthesize new kinds of molecules that have like really funky properties, and they use knot theory to do that. So knot theory was actually started in a sense, with the physicist Lord Kelvin. He had this idea that we could represent all of these like chemical elements with knotted vortex loops. This is definitely not true. Like, this is not how it works. But he proposed this idea. He was trying to do like some sort of stability of atoms, and it ended up like not being true. But it started this whole field of knot theory because people are like, maybe it does have like some interesting properties to think about. Okay. So in 1982, the first successful like synthesized molecular Mobius ladder was made. So this is exactly what you guys were holding in your hand, except it had three twists instead of just one. So this is super funky because like topologists study Mobius ladders all the time because we think they're super interesting. They're one-sided, that makes no sense. And so topologists study these kinds of things, and then all of a sudden they synthesize a molecular Mobius ladder. So these strands are carbon and oxygens, and then these things are carbon-carbon double bonds that are connecting the two things. So this was synthesized. And then 7 years later, they made the first molecular trefoil. So same thing here, we've got like the carbon and oxygen, and then these guys, like the little hexagons, are called benzene rings, and then these lines are the bonds, like representing them. But if you trace like what's going on here, it's exactly like the trefoil. Like you've got 1, 2, 3 crossings, they're going over and under, and this looks exactly like this guy. So that's pretty funky. And we can like say a ton of things about this molecular knot because we know a lot of things about the trefoil. The trefoil is like the simplest knot in knot theory, so we know like a lot of things about the trefoil because it's the easiest thing to start with. So yeah, one of those things is chirality. So chiral in math is pretty similar to chiral in chemistry. So like a knot and its mirror image, so a knot is chiral if you cannot like stretch or deform a knot into its mirror image. So the trefoil is chiral because I can't take the specific knot and then like twist it and move it and expand it enough to force it to look like its mirror image. So that means that the trefoil's like itself is a completely different knot from the trefoil's mirror image. So they're called the right-handed trefoil and left-handed trefoil. This is a figure 8 knot, and it's amphichiral because you can take it and then you can rotate it, and then you kind of like tighten this strand here and force it to look like that. Rotate it again, rotate or loosen it up, and then rotate it again, and then you can see this is its mirror image. Because if you took this and flipped it over, the crossings would change, right? So I didn't flip this knot over, I just kind of stretched it and moved it around a little bit, and it became its mirror image. So that means it's amphichiral. And then chiral in chemistry just means like some sort of substance and its mirror image are totally distinct. I was reading about this and it said like if you have a substance that is chiral, it like can smell totally different from its mirror image. Like the reactions are just so completely different when you have a specific substance versus its mirror image. So if we go back to this guy, we know that this is chiral because we know that I can't, mathematically it's been proven that you can't get from one to its mirror image. And so that means that if I take this guy and then I take its mirror image, it might behave entirely different. It might smell different, it might do totally different things because it's a chiral knot. Okay, that also means that if we synthesize a figure 8 knot, we don't even need to bother looking at its mirror image because we know it's going to react the exact same. Any questions on that part? You feel like we get chirality? Love it. Okay, so that's the end of the chemistry side. Then we go into biology. So I needed a reminder of what DNA was. For a topologist, they're gonna like salivate because it's DNA molecules are long and flexible, and topologists really like for things to be stretchy and you can move them and twist them as much as you want. And so DNA, it turns out, does the things that we like. So as far as DNA goes, it's these two strands, and the strands are made of things we'll talk about later. And you take them and you twist them, and and then they're connected by these bonds, which we'll also talk about later. It turns out they have a lot of topological properties as well. Just a reminder to ground us in some more math. We are studying two-dimensional things, so we're studying their projections to try and say something about the three-dimensional object. So that's what we're doing in knot theory, by we're looking at these like two-dimensional things, and then I'm trying to say something about a three-dimensional object. Same thing for DNA. Okay, so you'll notice on the top left, this is exactly a braid. And we've got this whole field of math that studies like all kinds of things about a braid. And so it's pretty immediately applicable for DNA to just use braid theory to say some things. And then we stuff a ton of stuff into these tiny like nuclei, I think is the plural. And so that's super tangled and can get super knotted. And then it turns out DNA doesn't really like to be knotted, so we have these enzymes that can try and unknot them for us, which we'll also talk about. Okay, so this, I believe, is the first DNA knot. So if you just look up DNA knot, this is the first thing that'll come up. So obviously, immediate questions like what kinds of knots are appearing in DNA? How do we like change them so that they're not a knot anymore? So if you look at this picture, we have something called the unknotting number, and that's if you just take like a specific knot and you change one specific crossing. So here we're taking that blue strand and we're pulling it up, kind of like passing through the other strand. And in doing that, if we kind of unfold this a little bit, it's just a circle. So the unknotting number is how many crossings you need to change in order for it to become the unknot. I think this is pretty cool, so I found some more pictures of it. I just think this is crazy that this is happening in real life. This is something I studied. Anyway. This is a picture of it becoming the trefoil. So this is just some random DNA knot. Take it, make a diagram out of it, smooth a few things. Remember, this is like that random little crossing we had like, I don't know, 400 slides ago, where you take that and you untwist it, and then it becomes exactly like the trefoil. Okay. I watched this video that described like replication, like a Pac-Man eating away the crossings in a knot, and I thought that was fantastic. So apparently DNA doesn't like to be knotted. I don't really know why or how, but I think it will try to unknot itself, and in the process of doing so can break. Apparently you really don't want DNA to be breaking out here. And so our bodies have these things called enzymes that will like do the unknotting number. It will go through and eat the crossings and then smooth them so that we no longer have like a super knotted DNA. And this process is called replication. So these are the different things that some enzymes can do to act on DNA. It can do that like passing through thing that we saw a couple of slides ago, and then it can also just smooth crossings, like we learned way back in our math time. So yeah, an enzyme will literally do this to a specific DNA, which crazy. And then the DNA doesn't have to break itself. Okay, so this picture was so helpful for me understanding what was going on. So DNA, the big strands are made out of sugar, phosphate, and a base. And then this is, like, these are the possible bases. And then each sugar has a site. I think it's called 3' site, and then 5' site. I said something offensive. Anyway, and then each of these are joined, like, they're kind of oppositely oriented, so like a 5' with joins with a 3', 3' times with joins with 5. So it just kind of goes back and forth, back and forth. And then this is kind of a chain. The nucleotide is like the combination of the phosphate, the sugar, and the base. And this is just like a very small version of that happening instead of like a big chain. Okay, so just some random like applications of what's going on with the knot theory. So we've got linear DNA, and then we have closed circular DNA. The linear is when we're going to use braid theory, and then the closed is when we're going to be able to use a lot of knot theory. So if we've got the closed, it's a twisted annulus, which is one of the things that you guys were playing with. It's if you put in an even number of twists in like your piece of paper, then it does become two-sided. I don't think this is too chunky. No, yeah. Yeah, but now you can see green is matching with green, pink is matching with pink, so it's got two sides. If I do an odd number, then it's one-sided. Anyway, closed circular is always a two-sided annulus. If you've got linked DNA, that actually happens in human cells. And then back to the closed circular DNA, if it's knotted, it actually is exactly a torus knot, where N, its torus knot is 2, N, where the N is really, really big. And it's been proven that all torus knots are chiral, so that means that they're also chemically chiral. So we don't have to do any experiments about whether they are chiral or not, because topologically we know that they are. And then we can also tell the difference between DNA molecules based on their linking number. So we don't have to do any sort of experiments on those kinds of things. If I have 2 molecules, I can tell if they're different if I know their linking numbers. DNA can also supercoil. This has its own thing, but it's basically the same idea. You're going to have these enzymes that need to eat away and smooth them so that it can be kind of uncoiled. And then we have folded proteins. So I was really struggling with understanding the difference between DNA and a protein. And so DNA is the instructions for creating a protein. It kind of tells you the sequence of the amino acids you need in order to build a protein. And then these proteins also not. And this is super, super big. I presented this at my topology seminar 2 weeks ago, and some guy in the crowd told me that folded proteins are a big deal because there's correlations between folded proteins and Alzheimer's and mad cow disease and all of these things. So this is a really huge field of research right now because it has a lot of use as we know more about folded proteins. Okay, so we've got unfolded and then folded proteins. You may look at me and say, that does not look like a knot, and you would be correct. Because it's got 2 empty strands, right? They're not connected at all, so that's not a knot. So what we do to be able to use knot theory is we kind of smartly connect up the ends. We create some sort of imaginary line between them and connect them up. And then we're able to say a lot. So here's our famous picture that I've been talking about since the beginning. So if you flash I take a flashlight and kind of flash it towards the green wall, then some sort of scientist figured out that projection is this knot. And they kind of smartly connected up the ends with these pink dots. You do the same thing for the pink wall. You flash it onto that one, then you get the trefoil. You do it on this one, you get I think this is a left-handed trefoil. Remember, these are 2 different knots because they're the mirror images, so they're chiral. Okay. So machine learning has been very helpful in this research because we no longer have to just kind of sit and figure out if a protein can knot or not. We can, too many knots. So in 2024, they used some sort of machine learning model to take a ton of given sequences for a protein and then predict the structure of those proteins. And so of those predicted structures, 0.4% of them were knotted. Specifically, most of them were the trefoil. But they took a ton of data and then did a ton of modeling to see how many of them were knotted. Okay. Oh, I also learned that there's only I think there's 4 different kinds of organisms that proteins live in or something. And this paper realized that there's no sort of bias towards what organism it knots in. So it's kind of equal probability no matter what the protein organism is, that it will be 0.4% that are knotted. Okay, I thought this was very interesting. So on the right here, we have, random. It's a scary word in math because it's not really possible to randomly generate things. But somebody did their best idea of a random generator of knots, and most of the time it was the trefoil. So this big bar, it's kind of hard to see, but the big bar is how many times when you randomly generated a knot it became the trefoil. And then the left-hand side is actually experimentation on DNA knots. These aren't proteins anymore, these are DNA. And you can see there's a big bar on the 5' knot. So this predicted that if we're just doing randomness, most knots that happen in nature are going to be the trefoil, and then by experimentation, the DNA knots were not actually most of the time the trefoils. A lot of the time is the 5-crossing knot. So this implicates that there's some sort of bias going on. There's some sort of reason that the DNA wants to be a 5-crossing knot, sometimes 2, based on the fact that it randomly generated the 3-crossing knot so many times. Any questions on that?
You said that DNA wants to unknot itself. Does it also want to unlink itself from other?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, I don't know enough, but I do think it's not supposed to like be like that. Yeah.
And for the graph on the left, what are the 4 different like categories? There's 5.
It's really hard to see, but I think it's just a specific kind of knot.
Okay.
So 3-crossing knot, 4-crossing knot, 5-crossing knot, and then I don't know what that says. Oh, but it's got 0.2% of the time that it happens. Okay. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay, so just kind of wrap up the biology and the chemistry side. So biochemists should be using all of the tools that mathematicians have like created to be able to study these knots, the knot tables that they're creating, to be able to tell a little bit more about what's going on. And they use things, the invariants called the Jones polynomial and also covenanthology, which we'll talk a little bit about in physics. And then mathematicians need to be using the knowledge that biochemists are creating and finding, and then creating theorems out of them. So this is kind of a big field right now. There's a lot of people working on taking some data that they're given from a lab and then working on creating theorems based on that. Okay. Physics. Woo! Okay. So the goal for the physics is to use quantum topology to advance quantum computing. This is a really pretty picture I found. I'm going to explain a little bit of it. So up on the left, we've got a quantum wave field, and then these little like slides, the little squares, are like slices of the field, and the amplitude, so like the black and red one, the really bright spots are where it's high amplitude, and the dark spots where the amplitude is almost 0. And the kind of goal of this is to set this big fat equation equal to 0, which happens when this is equal to 0. And so you take that, you're able to create some sort of polynomial out of it, and then researchers take that polynomial and create a torus knot, which is what these guys are. And then this slide shows a vortex line like winding around itself. So what you should take away from this is that there's some pretty recent research about finding knots in this way through energy, light, experimentation like this. They're finding knots, which is very weird. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about this because quantum knots, I believe, are still kind of like undefined. But a little bit of motivation. I don't know how many of you guys have heard about quantum computing, but it could take over the world. That's an over-exaggeration, but so what we currently use to like keep our bank accounts safe, like when you plug in your password or something into your bank, we're using classical computing to keep your password safe. And so they're building these new algorithms with like way stronger math that can break that like cryptography way faster than a normal classical computer can. So there's this huge need for physicists and mathematicians to be working together to create quantum algorithms and quantum mechanics, quantum computers, so that like when this new age of quantum computers comes, we're ready. Because I mean, they're way faster than classical computing is. So it's a little bit scary. So there's kind of this like really big push for us to be figuring this stuff out. A quantum knot is just kind of some sort of topological structure that's knotted. And the reason it's kind of helpful is you can hold a lot more information in a knot, and the classical computing wasn't able to hold all of that information. So quantum computing is able to hold it. It's proposed to be a lot more stable than most things. You're going to be able to like put a lot more information in there. Okay, so quantum computation is performed via creation, braiding, and annihilation of these things called quasiparticles. Those are just kind of, I believe, a collection of different kinds of particles. specifically anyons, which are two-dimensional systems. And the paths that these particles take have relationships to knot theory. So if I have some sort of quantum physicist, that guy is going to want to sum over all of the possible paths that a particle takes. So if I've got this particle and it starts at spot A and then wants to go to spot B, it can take like a super simple path, but it could also take like a really crazy knotted path where it like knots itself, maybe the trefoil, maybe something crazier. So because it could be any path, it could be a knot. And then all of these paths have something called a probability amplitude to them. And that obviously depends on the knot. And the way that a physicist calculates the amplitude is something called the Wilson operator. And it turns out that there's a direct correlation between the Wilson operator and the Jones polynomial. I think that's insane because those are two separately existing things. And there's like a very simple formula that connects the two of them. In 2004, physicists proposed a correlation between Kovanov homology and quantum states. So Kovanov homology is just kind of an extension of the Jones polynomial. That is a very severe generalization of what's going on, but it's just kind of taking the Jones polynomial and spicing it up a bit. And in 2004, physicists connected Kovanov homology theory with a space of quantum states. Oh, that's all. Okay, yeah, so I just really loved learning about all of this. I thought it was so interesting that we're finding knots in energy, in light, in DNA, in proteins. Like, there's so many ways that we can use the research that I'm just doing for fun on my own. So yeah, I also just think it's really cool to see. I feel like it's something that God is doing in our bodies, and we're able to kind of observe it. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Are there any questions? Yeah.
I don't know, this knot theory is not my area, so I try to leave early, but it's very interesting. So many application area. But one big kind of problem looks like there's no result with the application area. For the DNA,
Yeah.
kind of mimic, express with knot. But with knot theory, there is a kind of some remedy for the DNA problem or chemical structure also. You just kind of explain. But with the knot theory, any specific new materials, looks chemical structure with a new. Anyway, looks like no good result one.
Yeah, I think there are.
And
I just
also,
don't know what
physics
they are.
cases, quantum cases, you don't have any picture, which means no specific
Yeah, it's hard
application.
without pictures.
And also, you didn't explain the very first picture. You brought many pictures, but your first page you brought lots of pictures, but you didn't explain about with knot theory. Any reason?
So for the first picture with quantum,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the first picture of your screen.
the first picture ever,
Yeah.
or this one?
No, first picture, very first page.
Oh wow, that's like a lot of pages back there.
Yeah, you explained all the picture, but you
This
didn't
one?
explain. Not that one. That one.
Oh, there's no knot theory there.
Well, how come you brought that one?
I was just trying to get him to believe that math is cool.
That one is related to math.
Yeah, the
actually.
Golden ratio,
That is actually the
Fibonacci.
Fibonacci theory.
Yeah.
This one. You didn't
Yeah.
talk about how related the knot theory. That's why
Oh, it's not related.
I
to knot theory.
related, but you didn't say anything.
Yeah, no, it's not knot theory.
And also, this is kind of
I
math
know
theory.
it's
You
hard.
didn't bring any math problem, any number one.
Oh, I don't do numbers at all. John.
John polynomial is a math one, but
Yeah.
that there is also, I know he got the famous one, he received the Field Medal.
Oh, Jones did? For the-
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, it was huge. It was a
But-
really big deal.
Not specific any special applied area. And
Yeah.
that one, that polynomial is one of the solution, any special equation?
Anything special about the polynomial?
Yeah.
It's more so that like mathematicians know how to deal with polynomials, and so like there's a specific unique polynomial to every knot. So like we're able to work with that a lot more than just the knot itself. Especially in the field of algebra, it's really, really useful. Algebraic topology, you can kind of take that polynomial and work with it a lot easier.
So bottom line, so the knot theory is not any tool to solve for any specific equations.
Any what for?
Any equation to solve any specific equation. It's not
No.
possible, not possible to express with the equation form.
I mean, maybe, but not that I know of, to be able to use a knot to explain an equation.
Okay.
Yeah, not that I know of. It's more so to describe, like, you create spaces and then try and describe those spaces out of, like, the knots. Surfaces is really big, too, but, yeah. Very few equations in topology.
Anyway, it's very interesting.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
So,
Oh.
please. Okay, so returning to just the link between DNA linking or DNA knotting and Parkinson's and other diseases
Yeah.
of that sort, is there anything that we have, is there anything that humanity right now has the means of to solve that, or is that just up to the different?
I'm sure. I don't know, but I believe, like, from my understanding of it, it would be a study of the enzymes that are like not correctly like doing their job to unknot it. So I think the main application is like looking at these knots and figuring out why the folded proteins are that way, and then what kind of like biological structures we have to unknot them. But I'm not familiar with the specific like kinds, but I'm sure, I think that's like the whole point, is like to figure out ways to unknot them better. But yeah, so interesting. I didn't know about the Parkinson's and stuff. Yeah.
Your donuts and your sphere page.
Yeah. She is.
What can you tell me about the donut topology and the coffee mug?
Oh, I love that video. Okay, so the donut is topologically the exact same as a coffee mug, which is like, what? But there's a really cool video online where you can watch like you taking a donut and then like you're forming it into a coffee mug in the same way. But topologically, the way that we tell spaces apart is the amount of holes that they have in there. So like the sphere doesn't have any holes, and the donut has one. So we call them a genus. Again, fancy words in math. But this has one genus because it's got one hole. And so like a coffee mug, it's like a like like a specific like coffee thing, and then you've got a hole in it for the handle. So a coffee mug also has genus one. So it's topologically the exact same as a donut. Yeah.
In knot theory, is there a limit to how much you can stretch something, or in any way that would
No.
impact
Yeah.
functions?
No. Which is insane. Yeah, I guess like technically you can't infinitely stretch because then like a few things in the math change, but you can finitely stretch it as much as you want, which is insane. Yeah.
Is there a way that this can be involved into the complex plane?
Yes, for sure. I haven't worked in complex analysis enough, but yeah, that's its own beast. Yeah, especially in quantum, I think it's pretty big to study it on a complex surface. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes, it's very. Yeah.
Are there 4D knots?
40 knots? Yes.
5D
Very much.
knots?
What?
5D knots?
Oh, yeah,
Just
I
keep
mean,
going?
definitely, yeah.
Yeah?
We just can't see them. but yeah.
You should mention, when you mention about the coffee mug, you should
you want me to show the video?
No, you should specifically you should say with a two-hander and one-hander different structure.
Yeah.
And torus and sphere and coping mug, they have a different structure algebraically. I don't know, not theory.
Algebraically? See, I don't like algebra, so I don't know algebraically how they differ. But like topologically, yeah, there's one handle on a coffee mug and like one handle on a donut. So, yeah.
You ever watch Futurama?
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's a silly cartoon show, but one of the writers is a mathematician, and so quite often they have math jokes in there.
That's great.
Like once they ran into something so hard they got squished down into a two-dimensional universe, and
Oh my gosh.
they were looking at each other and it's like, is that you? I can't tell. All I can see is a line. But the thing that you made me think of was there was an episode where the old man was racing his spaceship against these teenagers around a track that was a Mobius strip.
Oh, really?
And so they went around and he's like, yay, we're about to win. And the kids are like, no, they have to go around again. It's, it's just, that's only one round. And he was like, curse you teenagers and your topology. So
That's great.
anyway, you might like that show.
Yeah, I should watch. Someone was telling me that there was a kid's show with a Mobius strip.
It's not a kid's show.
Oh.
It's more like The Simpsons. It's from the same guys as The Simpsons.
Okay. Cool.
It's a comedy, but it's not a kid's show.
That's fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Could you just go to the fourth to last slide? Just
Fourth to last. Wow. How did you remember that? Is that it?
yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
I just wanted to-
Oh, okay.
I believe what she's talking about here is the Feynman's sum over all the possible paths that he did. If you watch that video, that talk I did on the mirrors, the mirror reflections, it was about that. So if you are interested more in how they sum over all the possible paths and what that means, it's not quite as in depth as you probably need to start talking about knots and stuff, but yeah.
Interesting. Did you run into like naughty paths?
No, they were well behaved.
Nice.
Where was Tesla for that one?